Have you ever wanted your own personal valet?
Welcome to Fox Talks Business Podcast with your host, Tanya Fox. Tanya has been an entrepreneur for over 20 years, owning retail, service, and franchise. She holds no punches and is never afraid to talk about the nitty-gritty. Together, you'll explore the good, the bad, and the motivational of business life, turning obstacles into opportunities and failures into successes. So grab your favorite drink and let's have some fun. Here's your host, speaker, crafter, and collaborator, Tanya Fox.
In this noisy digital world, business leaders are continually bombarded with the newest must-have tools to reach their goals. As a Navy veteran and an inbound marketing engineer, Tom Schwab has a refreshing, different approach. He focuses on time-proven strategy and then supercharges them with today's free tools. As an author, speaker, and teacher, Tom helps you get more traffic, leads, and raving customer fans by being interviewed on podcasts. Tom is the author of Podcast Guest Profits, Grow Your Business with a Targeted Interview Strategy, and the founder of Interview Valet, the concierge level booking service. So thank you so much for joining us on the show today, Tom.
Tanya, I am thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
So your story is so interesting because I'm really curious to hear more about it. So I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about your backstory of how you got from a Navy veteran to where you are now. So tell us a little bit about your journey up to this point.
Yeah, and I think everybody's story is interesting. You know, it's ordinary to us, but amazing to others. So for me, I was a Midwestern kid, grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, had never been more than 100 miles away from my hometown. Through a clerical error, I got into the Naval Academy. So to all the U.S. taxpayers, thank you for paying for my education. I have monoscopic vision. I have no depth perception. So they didn't figure that out till my senior year. So they gave me a waiver because they needed people. They especially needed them in nuclear power. And I was a mechanical engineer. So what that taught me is that anything can be taught. It can be systematized. If you have the right culture and the right training and instructions, you can make it work, right? The scary thing right now, and the older I get, the scarier it gets, is the average age of someone running a nuclear power plant is 21 years old, and they're high school educated. Now,
Oh,
they're very motivated. They've done it great, but it's really a testament to the people that have put those systems together. And I've always remembered that throughout business, that you shouldn't have to have superheroes or MIT PhDs to run your business, because if so, you're not going to be able to scale it.
yeah.
I left the Navy for corporate America, worked in engineering, operations, sales, and marketing for a medical device company, and really learned the different areas of business and saw what big business was like. And I didn't like that nearly as much. I started a distributorship in just selling orthopedic implants, the artificial knees, shoulders, hips, to hospitals in the state of Michigan. And then 2008 came. Remember the Great Recession? The
Yes.
manufacturers came and said, we're going to cut out the middleman and go direct. And I'm like, that's a great idea, until you look in the mirror and you realize, oh, I look like the middleman. Now, they took care of me. They bought back the distributorship, but we had a sideline business, and it was direct-to-patient durable medical equipment. It was mostly rentals. And we'd been doing it in Michigan, and we knew we were doing well with it, right? We'd get half of the units would come back with thank you notes. But we thought, how could we build this up nationally? And I didn't want to do bricks and mortar, in
Right.
that part of the economy. So I'd read a book by two smart guys out of MIT, Brian Halligan and Dharmesh Saw, went on to start a company called HubSpot. And their premise was that you can use content on the internet to attract customers, delight them, engage them, and answer people's questions. So we did that. We went from a regional player to a national leader, sold that company off. And then in 2014, in my quote unquote sabbatical phase, I was helping some friends with their digital marketing. And one of the things I noticed was that podcasts were taking off, blogs were saturated at that point. And so I hypothesized, could you use podcast interviews like we used to use guest blogs? So the hack 15 years ago was, instead of writing a blog and putting it up on your own site, put it up on a bigger site, Wall Street Journal, Huffington Post, wherever that is, get that know, like, and trust. So we tested it, and Tanya, it worked great. It worked so well that I'm like, no, it's got to be a personality. It's got to be a niche. So we kept testing it, refining it. I wrote a book that was no more than like a little PDF. It sold well. And then people told me, you should do a course. So I did a little course, and I never took it out of beta, because the people that were honest with me are like, you've given me the book, you've given me the cookbook, you've given me the videos. I just want to be the guest. You take care of all the rest. So in the fall of 2015, we started a beta test, a done for you podcast interview marketing service. It worked so well that in early 2016, we took it out of beta, called it Interview Valet. And now we've grown to a team of over 18 people, based in North America and Europe. And we serve about 100 clients, a lot of authors, coaches, consultants, and brands that really have a great product, but they just are obscure. They need to get out and talk to their ideal customers.
And I think that is a great thing that people need to sort of realize, because even all of our listeners who are tuning in today don't think, like, they listen to podcasts all the time, but they never think, I could be a guest, or I have the expertise, because we quite often, dull down our expertise and our experiences. So what advice would you give to business owners of going on podcasts and being a guest, and how can they use that to up their game or up their business?
Yeah. And first, I think it comes back to what's limiting your business right now. And to me, I think we're in a weird time, right, where most of us can serve customers digitally. They don't have to be within driving distance of you. So now we've got access to hundreds of millions, maybe a billion customers, right? We don't need to be known by all of them. We just need to be very picky and be known by the right ones. And the great part is that the product or offering you have right now would be perfect for 1,000 customers. You don't have to change anything. You've just got to get out and heard by those. And I think a lot of times now people, like you said, will say, well, I'm not an expert. And I struggled with this early on until a friend of mine who's a lawyer pointed out the legal definition of an expert, right? It's somebody that by their degree, by their training, by their experience, knows more than the average person, right? So if you are a parent, you are an expert to somebody that has never had a parent before, right? If you know fourth grade math, you are a math expert to a second grader, right? And if you have worked in your business, if you've made mistakes, if you've learned things, you have expertise in that business. What's ordinary to you is amazing to me. And so to share that with somebody is really a great way to get that exposure and really get known, get the know, like, and trust from people that could be your ideal customers.
And I think that that's so true, because quite often, I will talk to business owners and they have ideas that, just amaze me, right? And it could be something simple like the way they do a window display, if they have a brick or mortar, or an email, a way that they send an email out. And it's true that sometimes you just go, that's an amazing idea. And they're like, well, I do that all the time. Like, it's just second nature, right, to them?
Well, it's I can think of going to a meeting and talking with other business owners. And at this time, I was starting to publish my first book. And somebody told me about like third-party logistics, where you can just send them the book and they'll ship it out. It's basically fulfillment by Amazon now too. And I was just like, that's genius. And they're like, did you really think that I shipped every book from my house and put the postage on? I'm like, no, but I guess I never wondered how you did that at scale. And so that piece of information, that cross-pollination of ideas was so powerful. And the other thing I think, as I listen to podcasts, sometimes the guests that you don't know, you'll learn more from than the guests you do. So, for example, Dave Ramsey. Love Dave Ramsey. He's done great things. But if he's on a podcast, I know what he's going to be talking about. It's going to be the same talking points. So why would I listen to that when it's the same interview over and over? But if there's someone that I've never heard of, that's got an interesting take or an interesting experience, that's somebody that I can learn from.
Yeah. And I think too, I always love listening to people that, um, are sort of down to earth, that maybe haven't hit that superstardom, because I find that when they're in that struggle and when they're in that journey to get there, their experiences and their failures and their lessons from those failures are so valuable to me. I just learned so much out of them. So,
Yeah.
and in that struggle, one of I think the biggest things that people are having an issue with, especially these days with social media and like how saturated everything is with that, is trying to break through all of the noise. So what are some tips you can give people if they're like, okay, so I feel like I have something to give. I feel like I have some expertise. Now what? How
Uh,
do I get people to hear me?
I cringe when I hear break through the noise, because all I can think of is people yelling at the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Nobody's hearing you, and you're just adding to the noise. And I was speaking at an event um, uh, out in California a couple of years ago, and it struck me, there was a gentleman sitting next to me on the plane. He could have been a great customer, but he had his headphones on from the very beginning, right? So how am I going to break through the noise? Well, I could pull the headphones off. I could yell over them. Either one of those, it's not going to build that know, like, and trust. So I look at it as like, I don't want to break through the noise. There's enough people spending a lot of money to do that. I want to get in on the conversation. So if somebody can invite me to a party and introduce me there, if they can invite me to their event and have me speak on a physical stage, wow, you don't have to break through the noise. You just got invited to the conversation. Or on a podcast, right? If somebody invites you to be on the podcast, you're not breaking through the noise anymore. You're in on the conversation. So that's what I always look at it and say, I don't want to be heard by more people, or I don't want to yell at more people. I want to be heard by the right people. And, to me, today, it's never been, easier to make a transaction online. Be a penny cheaper than the next person, and you'll get the sale. But don't think you're going to get the next sale, because somebody else is going to undercut you. If you want to build a business, that's about relationships. It's about lifetime value. It's about people getting to know, like, and trust you. And I'm sorry, I can't do that in a tweet. I can't do that in a quick social media post, but I can do that on an extended interview and really talking to people.
And I think that that's so true, because we're even starting to see that trend more, on social media, especially on Instagram. I'm even seeing it more that people are really starting to bring people in, to, the back office, to the background, showing them what truly happens. It's starting to change from that facade of, rainbows and sunshine and everything is good. And people are being really honest and showing what it truly is like.
And people want to know that, right? I can think of one of the clients we worked with early on, Gavin Zuklinski. If you've ever used Acuity Scheduling, um, he got on podcasts to get his word out there. And it's a great story, right? He built it for his mom, who was a hairdresser, and then she started to use it. Other people started to use it, and that's how the business took off. Now, what's the difference between Acuity Scheduling and Calendly and Schedule Once? I don't know. They all do about the same thing, but I know Gavin's story. I know his team, what he's about. And, the other ones, I don't know if they're based out of Bangladesh, India. I want to work with a company that I know, like, and trust. And if you look at it, what was it? Squarespace acquired Acuity Scheduling. And it was interesting. They had lots of companies to buy, but they bought the one that had the story and the founder to go along with it.
And I think that that's true. Like, I love hearing people's stories of how they got to where they're going, or even, why they started their business, why they picked the name they did, I find is always an interesting story. And people don't share that very often, right? It's just they think, no, I'll build it. People will just come. But it's true. I think sharing your story is so important and helps us to sort of connect, because I think we're craving that these days. We're craving that connection. We want a name. We want to feel, I'm going to date myself, but we want to feel like we're walking into the bar Cheers and everyone knows your
Yep.
name, right? For those of you that aren't over 30, you probably won't understand that reference, but that's okay.
And for everybody that is, that song is going through your head right now too.
Sorry about that. So tell us a little bit. Sorry, go ahead.
I think you were so right with that the world has changed, because think about the top companies right now. Tesla, Facebook, even HubSpot, right? When you say that, you think of people, right?
Yeah.
Elon Musk,
Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah.
Mark Zuckerberg. And even at HubSpot, they did a study a few years ago and proved that it was there was a high correlation between going to the page that said about the founders and becoming a customer. Now flip that along, I don't know, who ran GM, who ran Procter and Gamble, who ran Coca-Cola, Pepsi. Those brands in that time, it was just a name. Now I think it's really a name and the person behind it.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about Interview Valet and the services that you offer for people, because I think people might be at the point where they're like, okay, I want to do this, but somebody else has to do it for me. Like you said, I don't have time in the day. So tell us a little bit about the company and how we would get to work with you.
Sure. So first of all, I just want to say that nothing that we do is magic or a trick, right? It's all a system. And I wrote out the system in that book, Podcast Guest Profits, and I give away those. I'm happy to give away those to anybody that would like a copy of that. But what most people look at is they read the book and go, oh, there's a lot that goes into this, right? I want to be the guest. You take care of the rest. So we've got a team of 18, and we build relationships in the podcasting space. We're going to all the conferences. We've got relationships with over 3,500 podcasters. And really, that's what's going to get you on the shows, is having that relationship. The other thing, too, is that we focus on getting the maximum return on investment for our clients, both of their money and their time, right? There's 800,000 podcasts out there. You don't need help getting on a podcast.
Yeah.
But you don't have time to be on 800,000. So you want to get on the right ones. So we're finding the right ones. We're getting our clients the professional equipment so they sound great. We're making them the media kits, right? So that they're presented well. We're doing practice interviews with them. We're finding the right podcasts. And then it's very much a system: wash, rinse, and repeat. So all of our clients are briefed on every podcast. There's a brief sheet. We had a client that worked in politics, and they're like, oh yeah, this is exactly what we used to whisper to the politicians before they got on stage or before they got off the plane. Here's the podcast. Here's some things about the host, about the audience, common questions they ask, all the social media, so that you can do a great interview with minimal preparation. And then, the interview, that's the fun part. That's the part nobody wants to outsource. But we take care of everything else. And then we have a lot of clients that are just repurposing the content, right? So I've written a lot of blogs in my life. Every one of them felt like a homework assignment. But getting on here and talking with you, Tanya, it's fun. So we'll take the transcript, have somebody on our team, transcribe it for 10 cents a minute, clean it up into a blog, chop it up different ways. And now I can have a half-hour conversation with you and get a month's worth of content out of it. So really from that standpoint, we're a partner for coaches, consultants, brands, really to get their message out there.
And I think that was a key thing that you said that a lot of people don't think about when they do interviews, is how much you can repurpose that content to be able to spread it out. They just do the interview, they walk away from it and they go, oh, okay, well, that was fun. Because I'm the same way. I love doing interviews, but I love repurposing the information from it, because I find it's a great collaboration with whoever it is that I'm doing the interview with, but it also is less work for me.
Exactly. We live in an amazing time here where you can create in the way that's easiest for you, and you can repurpose in the way that's easiest for other people. So if you're not a natural writer, well, you can talk on interviews to have that transcribed. Remember somebody asking me, well, 51% of the US population listens to podcasts now. When do you think that's going to get up to 100%? It's like, well, I don't know that newspapers and televisions ever got to 100%.
Yeah.
10% of the US population is hearing impaired. They're not going to listen to my interview, but they might read the transcript. They might watch the subtitles on the video. And you look at it, even Google now is transcribing and crawling podcast interviews. So it's not going to be too long before when somebody talks about, podcast guesting, and Google's going to pull up, oh, you need to listen to, this podcast, and Tanya and Tom talk, and they talk about your question at minute 13. So from that standpoint, it's a powerful way to get found.
Yeah. So if someone is heading out, they've got their interview, they know what they're talking about, what's one of the biggest tips that you can give somebody when they're getting ready to do an interview? Just one. I know there's many, but
get the checklist and learn from other people. And I'll go ahead and everything, we talk about, I'll put it up there for you. Can get it. Just if you go to interviewvalet.com/Fox Talks, there's a copy of the book, but also there's a checklist. And this is the checklist we use for all of our clients. In the military, we joke that checklists are written in blood. Make sure it's somebody else's blood, right? Don't reproduce mistakes that other people have done. And I think I've been on 1,200 podcast interviews. I think I've made most of the errors myself. Little things like turning off your phone. Yeah, it's like, yeah, everybody knows that one. But how about checking your microphone? I was on one of my biggest podcast interviews, and I was talking into a beautiful $500 microphone and getting picked up by the internal microphone, because when I rebooted my computer, it picked that one. So from that standpoint, learn from others. Use a checklist. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You didn't do that in your business. Don't do that in your podcast interviews.
I think that's so true. I've done that before. I can't tell you how many times. You'd think I'd learn, but
there's no such thing as a dumb mistake until you made it the second time. And well, I've made lots of dumb mistakes that way.
Oh yeah. I now have sticky notes before every interview that goes up. Don't forget to do this. I mean, I know them, but the sticky note does help. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us. Tell us a little bit about where people can find more about the Interview Valet.
Sure. So I know if you're listening to a podcast interview, you're multitasking, all the rest of that. Make it easy. Everything will be right there at interviewvalet.com/Fox Talks. And everything that Tanya and I talked about will be up there. I'll put a free copy of the book, Podcast Guest Profits, How to Grow Your Business with the Targeted Interview Strategy, the checklist. And if anything of this resonated with you, I'll put a link to my calendar scheduling link there. We can jump on a call and see how you could use this to grow your business.
Thank you so much, Tom. It was such valuable information to be able to chat with you, get to know more about you and your story. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I look forward to listening more to what you do and how you take on.
Thank you, Tanya.
One of the things that Tom said in this interview has stuck with me even a month later after we actually recorded. And that was, it's not about breaking through the noise. It's about becoming part of the conversation. And that is so true. How often do you think about ways you can become a part of the conversation? Or do you find that in your advertising strategy, you're just trying to constantly find a way to shout louder than the competition? So I challenge you to sit down and think of ways you can become a part of the conversation. Maybe that's getting out in your community and volunteering with your local chamber of commerce or downtown business associations. Maybe that's just getting on some blogs. Maybe that's being a guest on various podcasts to get your expertise and your knowledge out there. Whatever it is, I encourage you to explore it because it's an avenue that I think you're going to find very beneficial. And if becoming a guest on podcasts is something that you think might be able to take you to the next level, then I really encourage you to head over to the interviewvalet.com/Fox Talks. You'll be able to get more information on having your own interview valet and how they can help you take the next step in getting heard on the podcasts that you need to be heard on. You can also head over to our website at foxtalksbusiness.ca to learn more about this episode and Tom on our blog page, as well as ways that you can become a guest on this show. Just hit our podcast and you'll see a link that says Become a Guest. And we would love to be able to share your story and collaborate together. Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're all having fun. Because if you're not having fun, why are you doing it?